All right, I guess we can get started. Hello, everyone who's joining right now. People will be rolling in as we go, but this event will be on YouTube later in case anyone misses it. This is our second show and tell event over the past year. This event is hosted by the Alumni Club of SF. I'm your host, Alec Babala, Communications Chair for the club, and we'll be facilitating today's show and tell. Stefania Serena, our vice chair of the club, will be moderating questions after each of our awesome presentations today. So you can type in your questions in the chat. We'll be able to have answers at the end of them. So we have three great speakers tonight. We have Ron Davis, Sandra Enterline, and Azi Rad. And they will be sharing the work that they each have. As a reminder, this event is being recorded. So we can get started now. So I'll be introducing our first speaker. Our first speaker today is Ron Davis. Ron Davis is principal at Gyroscope, Inc. He graduated from RISD in 1982 in industrial design, spending much of the last 2 years there designing stage sets for theater production at Brown. After graduating, he moved to San Francisco and joined Antenna Theater as associate artistic director. Ron then made a transition to museum planning and exhibition design in 1998 after being hired to design the immersive earthquake theater at the California Academy of Sciences. He joined Gyroscope in 2001 as senior designer and became principal in 2005. Ron has been with Gyroscope for 20 years. He has served as lead designer for many projects, including Skyline at the Chicago Children's Museum and the BIST Museum Science Adventure Center in Honolulu. He will be sharing work from his current projects for the El Paso Children's Museum, Explorations Beach Children's Museum in Lakeland, Florida, and the Farm and Food Discovery Center in Clover, Wisconsin. We're excited to welcome Ron. The stage is yours.
All right, thank you very much.
Of course.
Let's turn on the screen. Okay. All right, well, I have a lot to share today, and I want to kind of show you some of what I've been working on, but also to start with a finished project from a couple years ago, because I think it puts the work that I want to share in context. So lots of crazy projects I've had the chance to work on, and I'm going to share a couple of ones I'm working on right now with you. So the first one I'm going to show is Minnesota Children's Museum, and just one piece of it. So we design and plan museums. We do lots of planning, research, design, and these projects, what they have in common is they have kind of crazy climbing structures. So that's the first project, is a climbing structure known as the Scramble from the Minnesota Children's Museum. And the Minnesota Children's Museum, their kind of main focus or kind of philosophy is that children learn through play, and this is full-bodied play. So you can see here there's a extension that was built onto the Children's Museum for this big climbing structure. The theme that I developed was sort of 4 seasons in Minnesota, and with that, it evolved into this big 4-story contraption. And these projects take many, many years. Each project takes about 4 years to do. And so throughout the phases of that project, we developed a 3D model. So this is the 3D model of that climbing structure. The building is ghosted in here. But you can see there's multiple levels for kids and families to explore. And we try to make all of our climbing structures accessible. So there's a pathway for caregivers and parents to take stairs. There's also ways to get into this thing from different levels, and to use a wheelchair even to access it. So here's what it looks like when it's done. The centerpiece of it is this huge spiral slide, which is pretty incredible. Sculpturally, it also looks super cool. So here is a picture of the slide. This is me going through with a GoPro through the thing, and it's pretty wild. is my collaborator, Louise, taking a picture over there. So, the sort of thrill of going through this is really the focus of what we do, is to give kids the thrill, but also to give them the courage and the challenge to take on these multi-story climbing experiences. So, kids and adults can go through these things, but, you go through them, they're not without their, kind of scary white knuckle moments. So here this little kid has gone all the way through this thing. He's climbed up the ramp, and then he's walked out here on this top piece, which is 4 stories above the ground below. You can see the slide there. So that's an example of the build project, and then here's a quick look at 2 of the projects that I'm working on right now. So one is the El Paso Children's Museum, and its climbing structure is called Anything's Possible. And it's a brand new building, a brand new museum. It's inside this building shaped like a cloud. It's designed by Snow Hetta, being built by Exigo in El Paso. It's under construction right now. And here's a section view through the building. So Gyroscope's designed all of the exhibits. The piece that I've put most of my efforts into on this project is this 4-story climbing structure, the Anything Possible climbing structure. Here's just kind of an exploded view of all the different levels here. It connects on multiple different pathways, and there's all these other exhibits adjacent to it in here, but right now we're just going to focus on the climbing structure. Some of the inspiration for it are landmarks of El Paso, gems and minerals, and also the beauty of the kind of geometric forms in nature and the built environment. So here's a look at this thing without the building on. And like all of these climbing structures, you don't want to lose your kids in here and in the building. So you come in on the first floor, and in theory, you can only exit on the first floor. So you can squirrel away all around here. But, if your kid goes up there and you're a parent and you don't know where they went, they're going to come back out on this lower level. It's got a huge slide, a big swoopy one, and then it's got this parallel pathway for caregivers to follow them along. Again, we try to make these things as accessible as possible, so there's wheelchair transfers at many of these items for folks who are able to lift themselves out of a wheelchair and use their upper body. There's all sorts of activities and pathways for them to go through this thing. And then just one more sort of swoop up the top of this thing. There's even a pathway at the top called the Rainbow Bridge, which is wheelchair accessible. And you can see it comes swooping around here. And we're actually even going to provide wheelchairs for non-wheelchair bound visitors so that everybody can experience driving a wheelchair. But it brings you right out among some of the highest structures in the experience. So again, as accessible as possible. And I just have a couple pictures of an actual 3D model that was built by the El Paso Fab Lab that's being used to show the folks in El Paso. This is in the window of the office of the center that's planning it. It's a super cool model, and it was a really interesting challenge to work with them to convert our 3D model into a virtual model, into a real model. And now it's under fabrication underway on this project. So it's pretty cool. And then here's one last rendering of the project. This is the Rainbow Bridge that swoops around here, and it stopped at a lookout that folks can get to. So this is, again, you can't get out of it from the first floor, but you can loop into it on the 4th floor. And then the top, very top piece is this thing that's called In the Clouds, these dodecahedrons made of perforated metal that are about 48 feet off the ground. So that's the first project that's in my pandemic focus here. And the next one is Explorations 5 Children's Museum, and its climbing structure is called Blinky. And it's in the brand new redevelopment Bonnet Springs Park in Lakeland, Florida, and the Children's Museum is the cultural anchor of that. There's a brand new building that's under construction right now, and in the outdoor area, which is called the front yard, the feature of that is this 100-foot long alligator named after Blinky. Blinky was an alligator who crawled out of the lakes and lakeland and wandered downtown about 15 years ago. And people would feed him marshmallows, and then in a neighboring town, an alligator attacked somebody, a kid, and so the city decided they were flirting with disaster. So they sent Blinky off to a nature preserve. So Blinky's memorialized here. So just a little bit of sort of the process of developing Blinky and this climbing structure. It's like all the things we want kids to do and how they explore, crawling, climbing, and really challenging them like those other ones to like build coordination and confidence and critical thinking. So just diagrammatically, it's like, well, what could you do on a 100-foot long alligator? So starting with this diagram, and then some references of a real alligator. Real alligators, I started kind of old school with pencil and X-Acto knife and scissors, and did a bunch of sketches and cut up a bunch of pieces. And then took the profile that I liked from that and put it into the 3D model and started building the model of the alligator. And I wanted to use some found objects as part of his look and feel. So this is what Blinky the alligator looks like. You can see he's got teeth made from traffic cones, and his kind of knobby back and side are traffic cones as well. And the goal is to get in and everywhere on here, but to do it safely. And so, there's a lot of thought and review and official safety consultants who help us look at all this and create challenges and safe danger so that kids are challenged, but we're doing it in a way that's reasonable and responsible, but scary also. And then Blinky in the front yard, it's in Florida, which is hot and sunny, so there's these shade structures that look like lily pads. And so that puts Blinky in kind of like he's emerging from the lake. So this is a kind of walk through with him in context, and you kind of really get a sense of the scale with some of the kids and the family in here, and these shade structures. So this is about, we're at 50% final design. I was working on it all day today, but it's going to head into fabrication in like another 3 or 4 months. And just a couple of more pieces of this. So trying to capture qualities of the alligator. It's Blinky's eye. So Blinky lost one eye, by the way, so that's why he got the nickname Blinky. So he's got one eye, which is going to be like a LED illuminated orb. That's his working eye, and then his ghost eye will be a Fresnel lens. So if we go inside Blinky's head, it's kind of a good view spinning around. You can see how the bridge that connects from the back lands here in the head. Then you can pop out his snout and be up on top of his nose at the end here. And then look at Blinky's tail is a big roller slide. So you climb up to the top where his Blinky's butt, as I call it. And you come out, you roll around the slide, and you pop out at the end. And then gets into the nitty-gritty. So right now we're working through all this in the 3D model and doing these crazy drawings so the fabricator can build it. Anyways, that is what I've been up to and happy to share with you. And of course, if you have any questions, happy to take them.
Amazing. Thanks, Ron. This is great.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah. I personally have a few questions.
Okay.
It's funny if there's no Q&As.
Yeah, please feel free, folks, to ask questions in the Q&A.
Sweet. Is Gyroscope like known for these like play structures? Like, do people reach out specifically for these sort of projects?
Well, yes, we're actually known primarily for interactive museum experiences, and that usually children's museums is a big focus of that. And so climbing structures and play for a full-body play is kind of a feature of a lot of children's museums.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We try to find a connection thematically to the story of each of the individual projects.
Are there any in the Bay Area that you can point us to?
Well, one of the first projects I did years ago was the Bay Area Discovery Museum. There's a shipwreck out there in their yard, so that one's originally it was going to be more spectacular, but there's some climbing in that. And then the next project I did was a climbing structure, not for kids, but for lemurs at the San Francisco Zoo in the lemur forest. So I got to design these structures that the lemurs, so that they wouldn't become lazy. The idea was that the structure could change. And so it was kind of my excuse to make this big, crazy sculptural tree shapes that the zookeepers could move the arms around so that the lemurs would always have to guess what was up. And then there's kind of a feeding thing that makes them come up, and the feeding thing is right in sort of eye line with the visitors.
That's amazing. We do have a couple questions here. So will those be recycled traffic cones in Blinky, or fabricated cones?
Well, I don't think they'll be recycled. We'll start new, but they'll be real ones. And then, if they wear out, then we can replace them.
Love that. Another question we have from Arlo Walker is, what are some of the considerations when dealing with manufacturing and sustainability for your team?
Well, there's a lot of considerations around manufacturing. Around sustainability, we try to use sustainable products, where we can. They're like 3 forms of plastic that's largely recyclable. But there's a lot of new construction as part of this. So where we can use found objects, it's great. But there's real, steel fabrication and engineering considerations. In fact, the engineers generally talk us out of using as much wood as I'd like to use, because they really, this stuff's it's big and there's life safety issues. So it all is probably engineered to be as safe as possible.
That's great. And another question, how long would each project on average take?
If we start with a master plan, which is basically a blank piece of paper, maybe no building, just a site in the city, it can take like 4 to 5 years. But some of these projects go more quickly, and sometimes it's our scope is narrower than that. Maybe it's just a gallery, or it's a remodeling of an existing museum, and there's a whole bunch already there. But it takes a while to plan it, and it takes a while to build it.
Great. And we have a big fan of the Discovery Museum. Lisa Knowles says she loves that shipwreck. Actually, my kids went on that too, spent a chunk of their childhood on that. And then Jennifer asks, she's curious to hear how it is working with fabricators, seeing your designs in real life versus the 3D rendering. Has anything unexpected ever happened, better for worse?
Well, there's always a lot that's unexpected, but I sort of pride myself that on opening day, people, the clients, always remarks, it looks just like the 3D model, which is good, because it means we've communicated our intent and we've managed the fabrication process so that we've been able to maintain the vision of it all the way through. So there's it's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of problem solving, even after we're quote unquote done with the design. We're weekly or even several times a week meetings around building things.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of
work. No, we would love to see more. So keep us posted. And if anybody has any questions, you can still feel free to ask them, and we can post them freely. So, all right.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Our second speaker is Sandra Enterline. Sandra Enelan has been inspired by the abandoned factories of her birthplace of Oil City, Pennsylvania, like hulking cathedrals, strangely fragile and delicate. Stirred to strike an artistic balance between industry and fragility, Enelan received an AS in jewelry and metalsmithing from Rochester Institute of Technology and a BFA in metalsmithing from RISD. Enelan's work has been featured in exhibitions throughout the world, and her pieces can be found in the collections of museums, including the American Craft Museum and the Met in New York, and the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, among many others. She received 2 National Endowment for the Arts Fellowships and was nominated for the National Design Awards in 2003. In addition to her studio practice, Enelan currently guest lectures at the Academy of Art University and California College of the Arts. She'll present a series of works spurred by her pandemic-induced desire for protection, including chainmail encased glass eggs and fence-like bracelets. These recent pieces build on her previous experimentations with encasement, envelopment, and concealment as a way of caring for fragile objects. Sandra, the stage is yours. Oh, you're on mute. There we go. Hey, Sandra, you're still on mute, your microphone. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Okay, so that's not the, sorry. Okay, you can hear me? Yes?
I can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be here today. I want to thank Stefania, Serena, and RISD for inviting me today. I will share a little background about myself, including early work that surprisingly relates to pieces I've been working on this past year. Then I will share after the presentation a few pieces I have with me so you can see them on the body. So I'll start this. So this is a flyover of Presque Isle State Park in Erie, Pennsylvania, where I grew up and where I'm located right now, visiting family. Since being asked to present, I got deeper into my thoughts about what I was creating this past year and how much the work is directly related to the pandemic. I didn't realize this connection until just recently when I was preparing for this presentation. Strange things happen in one's inner world without you knowing. I thought it would go a little longer. We were supposed to all take a deep breath, but we'll move on because I thought that was calming. Oh, sorry. Agrarian architecture was always around me growing up. I hold images of these farm forms vividly in my mind. You had mentioned the factories, but I couldn't help but show this beautiful image. I consider both the natural and industrial world to be of equal weight. These images have impacted my body of work more than anything else. My passion to make things is embedded in them. Sorry, I have old school notes. This is an inspiration table in my studio, some collections, rodent skulls, and a few mink penis bones, dried insects, opium bottles, and souvenirs. This is a display wall in my studio that expresses my fascination with mold. Here's a picture of my studio, as organized as it gets. It can get pretty messy at moments. But I'm very happy to have and grateful to have such a nice big space to work in. This is the table and tools I use to create and form the metal. I mainly work in silver, steel, some gold. So I thought that would be helpful to see. It's kind of simple and they're actually really beautiful tools. So this is a pendant from around circa 1993. from my opposition series. This piece captures everything I try to achieve in my work. It's such a minimal construction, and yet the simplicity of the form is misleading. The piece features a hollow 18-karat gold egg and a hollow oxidized silver egg on stainless cable. There's a lot of layered meaning in it in terms of the tension between the precious and the non-precious, between the front and the back of the body. As the elements fold out, one puts their head through the circle. The seemingly austere minimalism paired with the organic forms makes this piece sing, at least for me. The springiness of the cable give the pendant a taut dynamic on the body, and the contrast between the materials and how they are placed on the wearer brings the piece to life. I drill holes because I like to. I was doing a lot of, high-end craft venues in my day, and many people would always think they were helping, suggesting different ways I could do my process. And so it's like, no, I drill the holes because I like to, and it's meditative. Here's an earlier piece. A lot of these are earlier works that's going to definitely relate right back to where I am now. This is an egg pendant with heat patina. This is a heavily drilled perforated gold capsule. I'm known for my perforated work, spanning for over 30 years. This is a brooch. It's called box brooch. My work is based on fascination with light, especially the juncture where light meets mass. So despite my use of deceptively simple forms, I build light and subtlety into my work through dualities. The tension between the interior and exterior is what interests me. I'm fascinated when pieces are invisible at certain moments, and at other moments, they simply appear as a strong sculptural form. This piece is in, let's see. I often notice objects of concealment in my environment and day-to-day life, from the rusted silos of my childhood to the presentation boxes of quail eggs in grocery stores in Japantown in San Francisco, just blocks from where I live. The tension between the engineered, clear, plastic, vacuum-formed cases and the fragility of the egg inspired me to make this piece. This piece is called 10 Mile, probably around 1994. And I've always been interested in encasing things that are encased and are cherished and protected. These pieces and some of the latest pieces I've been working on, which I'll show you in a few minutes, are a new version of my containment and encasement theme. Uh-oh. Okay, something. Oh, sorry. I found myself captivated at the first gem show I ever attended. I was utterly stunned by the bins of treasure, and I wondered how anyone could just choose one gem. I felt like a kid that wanted to delve in with my sand shovel and scoop them in my pail. This is how I dealt with my problem. I bought handfuls of lower grade rubies and poured them into my pieces. Problem solved. I love the mystery of the rubies rattling around inside, and the glow of the rubies through the mica. The piece is titled Mica Drum. I guess we'll talk about the factories again because I'm obsessed. But this piece probably reflects this passion more than any others I've made. So it's Diamond Web. It was 2011. It was created. I think it took at least a year to make. or I don't know, 6 months. But so abandoned factories have long inspired me. They're like hulking industrial cathedrals, gritty, mysterious, immense, and dark. Yet they are strangely fragile and delicate. The repetitive and delicate shards of broken windows and rows inspired me to start working with diamond slices. I view the diamond slice elements in this necklace as windows. This is a display of some fairly recent work. This image is from an exhibition in 2016 in Sydney, Australia at Coda Gallery. I think this is the most beautiful display of my work yet to date. The massive steel wall holding my steel and pure gold pieces. So you can see like there's tips down here of pure gold. There's pure gold, my handmade beads. So it's a little hard to see here, but the steel with the gold, just absolutely, it's just pretty amazing. And I like the rawness of it. But there's also some diamond slice pieces up here as well. But I just felt like this was an exhibition that was just really spot on for me. I was so pleased with it. Okay, so now we're going to go, and I'm not going to talk through this because I'm going to talk about the pieces after this. Oops, why did it do that? I'm sorry. Okay. So these are pieces I made early on in the pandemic, honestly, in April of 2020. And it was an online exhibition organized by Gallery Loop in Montclair, New Jersey. The title of the exhibition was One World, and the pieces were supposed to relate to the pandemic. So I made these funnel pieces, and definition of a funnel is to concentrate, channel, or focus from many into one, from the Latin infundibulium. This means to pour, but I also think it speaking about time. And in these pendants, we see our fragile world mended. We can see the breakage, the glass inside, fractures, and yet we are brought together by our shared peril, beautiful, broken, yet whole. Okay, I don't know why. Okay, so somehow it keeps skipping. Egg in hand. Shout out to Luke Town, who I've been collaborating with on some new pieces. He graduated in 2019 from RISD in the jewelry department. So I'm collaborating with him. The chainmail Luke is creating for me is enveloping a hand-blown glass egg. I purchased a dozen or more of these at an antique shop. Each egg is unique as the blowing process used to make them is a bit imperfect. Luke's grandfather owns a farm in upstate New York and solved the egg riddle. It is a chicken egg laying decoy. So they put these glass eggs out in the barn so the chickens will know where to go. But I think they're very, very old. So here is an image of the stainless steel mail before it's been enveloped around the egg. Here's a detail of the bottom of the piece. This is the finished piece. This is the one I'm going to show after I get through with the next few slides, because the weight is just, it's just a beautiful weight. It's really, really nice on the body. And then here's one that we're working on where it's another iteration of the chainmail work. It's hard to see, but inside the copper mail, which is a mock-up, is a steel ball, like a rusted, found, pretty imperfect steel ball. We are making 2 with fine high carat gold wire. So the objects will be, the gold's wire is going to be finer, and it will show the rusted objects better. And I'm going to aim to make a connection so that the elements will fall on either side of the body, which is a frequent solution that I choose and love. And the last thing is these bracelets, which I'm also going to show. So here are 2 new bracelets I have with me as well. My assistant kind of blew me away when she referred to them as fence bracelets. So this definitely connects to the COVID situation. And now I'm going to switch and go off stop share. Okay, right, to show the jewelry. So I'm on, right?
Yes, you're there.
Okay. So this is, I wish I could see, well, I can kind of see, but can't make my screen bigger. So this is the egg. And then, sorry, I don't have a big,
Hey.
Can I make my screen bigger? Is there a way to? No.
Just your,
'Cause I'm seeing just a
Yeah.
little.
just put it sort of straight center, not off to the side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put it on. It's just, honestly,
Wow.
yeah, it feels so good. And I just feel like what happened was I'm making armor. It's like, alrighty now, COVID, and there's like this fragile little, beautiful, sensual, fragile thing inside, and I'm putting armor around it. And I wasn't even thinking about, like, that's what we were all doing. We were putting armor around ourselves, right? Your comforter, so this has just occurred to me that that's kind of what, because I had these eggs for, I want to say, quite a number of years. So that's that. And then I'll show you the movement of the bracelets. Is just,
Wow.
it just, yeah, there's a lot of pieces. It's all hand cut. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's a beautiful, very intentional, textured, very coarse saw blade we're using on the tops to make it really rustico, but also then very industrial. And so then, okay, I'm making armor and I'm making fences. So that's what I guess was happening. And then I'll just try this oxidized one. They're basically the exact same material. And one is, I got to put my glasses on. One is oxidized and one is not.
Gorgeous.
It feels so good. It really, so
Wonderful.
that's what I had to share.
Wow. Thank you so much.
So nice.
That was just being taken on a journey. Really beautiful and amazing to see the light behind you, the sunset.
Oh, is it
going down? Or yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. We've
Thank
got
you.
some comments and questions, and keep them coming out there. Lisa was definitely excited about the fence bracelets and thinks they're extraordinary, and thank you for sharing them. And also mentioned that she really loved the recent exhibit with the steel and gold, and just the delicate, like, I mean, just that's a great observation, and it's just such an incredible detail. The kind of contrast between the industry and the delicate, it's always been in your work. Just making these perforations in this seemingly hard material, but you have to be so careful, right? It's not, arbitrary. Yeah, I've had the privilege of being in your studio and in your space and watching you burn holes in paper. Just really wonderful. And but I think the contemplative part of it is really quite lovely.
Thank you.
Another question from Amy. The diamond web necklace next to the factory image is so incredible. Do you always have a clear vision of the end result when you start a project like that, or does it evolve into the final form as you work?
I mean, that one, I'm really a person, like I'm using this guy, Luke, for the chainmail. I had no interest in learning how to make chainmail. Because I just conceptually, I want to, it would take me a year to figure out how to do that egg. It's like, no, I want to move forward. So, and along with the diamond web necklace, I had a guy, Chris Neff, who I've worked with, who sets diamonds for me, because certain diamonds that not the slices, but he created a, because I'm not good in the apps for figuring out dimensions. And so he did, I don't know if he was in Reddit or whatever, but he did, I clearly do not, I'm like, Chris, this is my idea. I kind of had an idea of scale. I wanted to taper back, but I enlisted someone that figured out the dimensions. And it was cool. My part I felt really good about was I found a universal way to set every diamond. And then there was like a hingy thing on the back that just involved a wire going through that was balled back. So I was like, I had to set like 30 diamonds. And then once we had the beautiful structure, which was the white gold, it was just plugging them in with a wire and balled back. So
amazing, yeah.
I hope that piece was one of the most complicated pieces I've ever made.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stunning. And the sliced diamonds is just incredible, really amazing. And the reference to the shards of glass in the factory is just stunning to see them side by side. We have a question from Barry. Where can we purchase your work in the Bay Area?
Oh, okay, that's wonderful. So shout out.
We all want some.
Shibumi Gallery is in Berkeley. Shibumi. It's on 4th Street. She just opened. It's SHUMBI. April Higashi is a very well-known, beautiful jeweler as well. She just expanded to a really nice new space around Christmas. Is going well. And then also Gallery Lulo in Healdsburg is fantastic.
Great, wonderful.
And I don't know if we're going to share website. I'm almost done with a new website, so maybe that could happen after.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So,
what's on your horizon? What are you working on going forward?
I mean, step by step. I think I'm right now really getting down into this chainmail thing. I'm excited about that. I feel like I have my hands in a lot of pots, and I've gotten, as I get older, like I'm really comfortable with that. My assistant comes in and sometimes she's like, what is all this stuff down here? And I just go, I just have to look at it because I don't want to forget it. And I just know one day I'm going to go, oh, that's what I'm using. That's right there.
Right.
So
it's like me with all my tabs open on my browsers.
So it's like step by step jewelry.
Yeah, that's great.
A lot of work, but I feel in a good place.
Good. Well, it's stunning to see your work in person. I hope everyone can see it, and touch it. It's amazing. Thank you so much for making the time, and enjoy your time with your mom.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much.
Our final speaker today is Azi Rad. Azi Rad is a multidisciplinary graphic designer and art director who views design as an art practice. As such, she strives to work within the delicate balance of playful experimentation and intention. Her process-oriented approach allows her and the teams she leads to establish creative vision and ground that vision in strategic and conceptual thought. Azi's work spans publishing, design agencies, global corporations, and personal design practice. She's grown her knowledge from decades working within a diverse array of artists, designers, cultural institutions, startups, and large enterprises. Before joining Emotive Brand as a design director, Azi was a creative director at Elbow, where she helped redefine and redesign the eBay brand. Notable collaborations include Chronicle Books, Dwell Magazine, Apple, and the Annenberg Foundation. Azi will discuss her work, followed by a short presentation of a new creative agency rebrand that ends with a love story. Azi, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, so given that you gave that really helpful descriptive bio, I think I'll just kind of quickly move through this first section of my presentation, but I did want to start off by saying thank you to RISD and everyone who organized this event. I'm also really amazed by the work of Ron and Sandra and honored to be sharing this space with you. So I think I'll just, so this for my talk today, I'm going to start with just like a quick overview of the range of work that I do. As Alex said, I do consider myself somewhat of a generalist and multidisciplinary designer, but I have been focusing on brand identity systems for the last 10 years. And that's really the sort of the focus of the presentation that I'm going to be making today as well. But I did want to show some of the other work that I've done. So I'll just dive in really quickly. And in the interest of time, I'm going to just sort of click through these images and give a little brief description. But if anyone has any questions or wants to follow up about specifics, I'm happy to get into it in the Q&A portion. But this was a brand identity system that I did for an independent San Francisco-based gallery. And I'll just click through these quickly. I have more to say, but just want to make sure I can get to the main project. And work I did for eBay, which we all know is a global corporation, helped with brand identity work there, kind of refining and revising and revisiting their brand system and making a digital guidelines that would sort of help them be more successfully implemented. An example of a sort of brand identity system for a startup. And then I've also, outside of brand identities, done some art direction, illustration of water bottles for Camelback. And I've also done exhibition design. This is an exhibit at the Magnus Museum of Jewish Art and Life in Berkeley. Hopefully it will be opening soon. It's a really incredible body of work by Arthur Schick. Another photo of the interior, another image of the space. And then I started off in publishing. So spent most of my 20s at Chronicle Books as a designer there. And so although this work is pretty old, books are really near and dear to my heart. So wanted to also share this work with you as well. And just a little shout out to the fashion world. I love collaborating with other creatives, and I'm always honored when I can do a brand exercise with another creative individual. It always ends with really beautiful work, in my opinion. So the heart of my talk today is to share a brand refresh process that took place during this pandemic that we're all experiencing. I wanted to share this because I'm really interested in process in general. And so the bulk of this presentation is really diving deep into thinking, concepting, the process of how this project unfolded, and also sharing some of the work that's being made. The work that I'm sharing is not final, so this is all sort of work in progress type of a share, but really excited to be able to present this to you. And it's definitely want to mention though that it's not, what is reflected in this presentation is not just my work, it's the work of a team that really came together and collaborated under a really tight deadline to make this all happen. So after a couple of months of doing freelance work for Emotive, I was asked to take part in a refresh exercise for their brand. The structure of this project was a sprint. So I had never done a brand identity as a sprint before. The ask was to craft a brand refresh for an agency of brand experts and have the outcome be a system born out of collaboration that everyone could connect to. This sort of success of this rapid fire experimental jazz approach relies completely on trust and instinct. You have to trust in yourself and you have to trust in your collaborators to be able to sort of pull something off in a sprint fashion. Yet I was new to this team. So that put me in an unusual position where, you know, you're relying on a lot of faith and trust, but was sort of something that I had to discover and learn about the people, you know, the team that I was working with. But on the positive side, I was also coming in with a very fresh perspective and a clean slate. So that was what I think I was bringing to the team, an outside perspective. Our timeline was basically 6 days to do everything. So 3 days to conceive and craft the system, the components such as the logo, typography, color palettes, imagery, the overall look and feel of the system. And then we had 3 additional days or sort of following week where the direction that was hopefully chosen would be implemented into further collateral and a broader system. And then what you're seeing here is a screen grab of the Figma document that we use. And this has been hugely, like, completely life-changing in terms of a process for designers. Although I haven't actually met my team in person, we collaborate consistently in this space. It's a cloud-based software application where you can see people moving and designing and creating in real time. You can have conversations around work, you can comment, you can take someone's design and adjust it in real time. So it's been this really powerful tool that I think has been especially incredible to use during this time where we can't be together in the same space. So a little bit about Emotive brand. Founding partners Tracy Lloyd and Bella Banbury built Emotive 12 years ago, and it's a creative agency focusing on brand identity located in Oakland. This is how they currently present themselves on their website, just to give some background. And then a little bit more about the intent of the rebrand. Today, where Emotive stands is it's considered the preeminent creative agency in the B2B brand sphere. They help B2B companies focus on the most critical drivers of growth. But for thinking in terms of Emotive's future, Emotive is, as a company, is for everyone, leaders who represent aspirations of their own or the brands and movements they lead. They do help B2B companies focus on the most critical drivers of growth, but they do this across not only business, but brand and culture. And they also enable the growth of an idea, an aspiration, or a belief through unexpected and propulsive creative experiences. So whereas they were very skilled and very respected in the B2B sphere, they're at a moment of pivot where they're going to be growing beyond, and, you know, absolutely that's their focus, but there's room for new adventures. So the strategy team supplied us with this sort of overview. So this is what we were like starting our brand exercise with, which was like the core concept of renew. And I'll just read these really quickly because these were the main sort of brand idea takeaways that informed our brand expression. It was to lead with feeling, support with function. The idea that strategy is creative and creative is strategic. Champion total reinvention over incremental growth. create future-ready strategies and experiences, give visionaries the right environment to thrive, make it vital, urgent, necessary, and for good. So to be honest, this process felt daunting to me. I had 3 days to somehow create something for this new team of people that I was working with, that they were going to, that would hopefully embody everyone's intentions and talents. And it's such an incredible mix of diverse talent. So in order to sort of free up my mind from hypercritical chatter, and set the stage to be able to do the focused work I needed to do, I sort of pulled inspiration from a couple of design heroes. Just will highlight the portions that stood out to me from their quotes. From Tibor Kalman, the fact that when you make something no one hates, no one loves it. And from Irma Boom, the idea that, to really dive into content first and allow the concepts to lead the design was something that really helped set the stage for me to be willing to take risks and to put myself out there. And then this little bird was a huge inspiration for my process. I think this bird of paradise exemplifies the idea that strategy is creative and creative is strategic. This bird is completely obsessive about his mating preparation. I highly recommend you look up clips of the bird of paradise mating dance. He dedicates himself full-heartedly, using every talent and trick in his toolkit, and ultimately delights and charms. And as you can see, the female bird is quite excited by this activity. And so to start my process, my process kind of varies from project to project, but I generally start with more reading and writing than anything else before I get anywhere near designing anything. And given our short time frame, I didn't really have time to do a whole lot of that. So I had to rely on the familiar, pulling inspiration from memory to create connections and work towards a concept that I could run with. So I began with asking, sort of obvious questions like, is there anything significant or intriguing about the etymology of the word emotion or emotive that I could pull from? And I found these sort of descriptions that helped guide some of the thinking and led to this like chain of thoughts. But the main piece that sort of stood out to me was that the word emotion actually comes from the word to stir up. And I found that intriguing. And then you'll see that kind of play out in the system. And I was also thinking about the question of, how can you express this idea of emotion purely visually or abstractly? And, for me, I think colors have a profound effect on us on all levels, physical, mental, and emotional. And then from here, thinking about colors and emotions led me to sort of question, what do psychologists have to say about this link between color and emotion? And I discovered this incredible website called the Atlas of Emotions, and this really interesting quote by the Dalai Lama, who's involved with that project. In order to find the new world, we needed a map. In order for us to find a calm mind, we needed a map of our emotions. And then linking this idea of color, emotion, and now sort of mapping, I remembered this really inspiring sort of architectural piece called the Paella Sanatorium, which is a former tuberculosis sanatorium designed by Finnish architect Alvar Aalto in 1933. At that time, tuberculosis was a terminal disease, and everything about the facility, from the lights to the paint to the furniture, was designed to elicit emotion and comfort. It breaks all the conventional rules about what a hospital is, and instead, sorry, my notes keep shifting on me. It projects a radically empathetic vision of what a hospital could be. The spirit is exactly the aim of Emotive as a company and for their clients. And then this piece that I found like a follow-up article from 2016 speaking to how the sanatorium still continues to radiate a profound sense of humanity after all these years, that sort of longevity and ability to survive time and still have that impact was something that was really meaningful. And so that then led me to looking at architectural blueprints. This idea again of, okay, so color, emotion, mapping, this sanatorium, and now architectural imagery. The image on the right is called the combinations formed by the square from the Encyclopedia of Architecture. And that all led to finally this concept, which we're, with the help of Chris Ames, our writer, we're calling Poetics of Space. Though intangible, emotions operate in physical space. Buildings, just like brands, influence our mood and behaviors through a mix of strategic and creative elements, light, color, architecture, and energy. When we're feeling stagnant or stuck, being given the right blueprint can elevate, inspire, and stir us up inside. How this pays off strategy is that the most meaningful thing we give our clients is a blueprint for the future. We architect, we provide foundation, we give them real estate to imagine, and then we fill those spaces with emotionally resonant experiences. So based on all of that sort of like line of thinking and research, this is the logo that I came up with. The E represents the idea of the blueprint. It also, I think, represents the whole experience of designing, the moving of layers and shape and form. It speaks to structure and flexibility, scalability, continuity, process, expressive. It's expressive. And it's paired with a really sort of clean, clear, legible, reliable, accessible typeface. And together they connote potential possibilities, courage to take risks, unexpected, ability to flex and to tell a story. And this is how it flexes. So the logo in its static state obviously has its own story to tell, but then it has this possibility of being animated and variable and expressive. And we, you know, tying it back into that, the research around color, really wanted to have color be a key component in the system. And color here is being used in this sort of slightly unexpected way, though subtle, where the colors overlap or mix. It's not a typical mix that's occurring. It's sort of this unexpected third color that's being created. So these are the two sort of logos, the solid one color, the monolinear one color variation, and then the colorful variation. This was a first take at a website design. Here you can see some of this sort of these surprise elements of being stirred up, being incorporated into the design system. And again, the sort of color being used to bring in moments of sort of delight and surprise that, like for example, here the orange is overlapping the imagery below and creating that third color on the left. So that's sort of an unexpected piece that happens with movement and layering and transition. And then also created this sort of series of patterns based on these ideas that we're pulling from forms from the logo itself. And this is all using a lot of light and layering and sort of unusual mixing of color. The system needs to flex. So we still, you know, it's a B2B branding firm that needs to feel mature and reliable and sort of pared down and be more supportive. But then we're looking to also find ways to be more expressive and experimental. And so this is just showing sort of that range within the system that can happen. This is just a quick overview of the typefaces that we chose. And the different expressions of the logo on social and the use of color that can be used throughout the system. This is another example of both that concept of being stirred up and also the patterns in use. And this is like a fuller expression or a study of the variation of pattern that can be created within the system to be used in any possible way. And then with that was the system that was presented to our founders and along with others. And this was the direction they chose to go in. So once that decision was made, the full team was brought on board and everyone started to have their own interpretation of what the system could be and created all these sort of really amazing motion graphics. And as you can see, there's this real possibility to go really out there with color and shape and form and have all these different levels of expression, creating a rebrand or a brand for a group of highly creative individuals that come from all kinds of backgrounds and have all different types of creative output. Really wanted to have a system that could meet all of those needs and also still meet the needs of the strategy team as well. So with that, this sort of exercise helped us discover more clearly what we wanted for the future of Emotive. And now we're at this place where we're sort of positioning Emotive as the master brand. It's an agency that helps clients tap into their power of motion to realize vital growth. And then we have this lab entity called Wave, which is going to be housed within Emotive that manifests clients' highest aspirations in creative and unexpected ways. So that's sort of the experimental wing. And I'm just going to quickly go through some of the thinking that we're doing around how to approach this, but we were looking at the letter forms themselves. The E has a lot of perpendicular form and straight angles. The W of Wave has more sort of diagonals and movement and dynamism in the form itself. And how can you take that and now push that down into the full system of these two wings of the brand? And so on the left is a representation of a motive to remember, to look again, to examine, drawing upon the past expertise, rational, structured, strategic, the framing, the lens, the environment, data testing, research, and practice makes perfect. Whereas on the right, we have to imagine uncharted territory, a sea of change. It's vision-led, future forward, emotional, creative, experimental, potential possibilities, the courage to take risks and break from tradition. So the forms themselves are sort of reflective of the letters in the words, and sort of seeing where this could lead visually based on sort of pulling from that core like typographic place. Also noticing that the E and the W, you turn an E on its side, you get a W, the two different expressions of like the more sort of straightforward, sophisticated, clean approach on the left, and anything's possible on the right. Taking that original logo mark and, flipping it on its side. Playing around with ideas of transition between the two spaces, creating little moments of delight, and then how to show work within this world. And then the possibility to still, pare back and have, Emotive express itself in its true voice as well. And then because the team is full of like illustrators and creators, we wanted to be able to surface some more of that, handmade quality and creativity. So these are just quick sketches of how this could potentially be expressed in the system on the Wave side of things. We did this really incredible Black History Month series of illustrations. So this is sort of just sketching out what a new blog could look like with showcasing that work. And then also, how do we bring in more of a hand quality to the blog and with hand lettering and things of that nature. And then just the endless possibilities of creating new patterns and forms and expressions within this system. And it's an ongoing process. This project is going to continue to be iterated upon, but this is sort of where we've landed now, and there's a lot to be done, but just wanted to share that with you. And wanted to also shout out the team that helped to make this possible, and to end on the note of the love story, which is that I came on as a freelance designer and didn't really know the team very well aside from one person. And I completely fell in love with this team and this company and decided to go in-house. And so now I'm design director in-house at Emotive. And I don't know that, I think very much because of the crazy nature of the sprint process and getting to know the team so well, it really helped clarify that decision for me. And so that is it for my presentation.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. What a wonderful breadth of work. It's really powerful and, inspiring, all of this. It's been so wonderful to hear everyone speak about their work. Question, comment here from Lisa. She loves the bird analogy. good design is creative solutions to problems and testing out strategies. Great work, and thank you for sharing. And just please feel free to add some questions out there. How do you feel? I'm just curious about your experience about being in-house and, being on your own. I think that's something we've all sort of deal with. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
I mean, it's actually been really interesting because I've always worked collaboratively, but I really tend to work alone most of the time. And that's what I'm used to and what I'm most comfortable with. But somehow through this need to separate and these tools that we have at hand, I feel much more like I'm actually collaborating on a day-to-day basis on my work with others on the team, which is different than it has been for me in the past. And actually something that I feel more collaborative now versus sort of what you would think would happen, which is we'd be more sort of separated. Because we can just get into each other's files so easily and just, have these conversations and dialogue around our thinking and our sketches and our process.
What is that software you're using? I missed that.
Yeah, so it's called Figma, and, it's a lot of people design within Figma, but we actually use it both to design within and also as just a tool to collaborate, because it's all real time. You can see people, you can actually watch people designing in there. You can see people doing their thing. It's really incredible. And it's really changed, how I think, especially in the design world, how we all work and interact with each other. Yeah.
So, so your sort of take is that given the pandemic and our isolation, this team in particular was really collaborative, do you think? Or was it, I'm just trying to pull out like what it was that made you connect and want to sign up, and be their in-house lead designer, just how that.
It definitely was the team. I think after being in this industry for so long, that's one of the actually most important things aside from the work itself. But yeah, it's a very collaborative team. There's a sort of horizontal hierarchy. So there is no sort of, even if you have a director title, everyone is sort of working extremely collaboratively and on the same level, giving each other ideas and input. And I think one thing that really sold me and sort of made me fall in love with the team was that everyone was working to make each other's work stronger. It wasn't like someone was trying to push their direction forward and at the detriment of other people's ideas or directions. And I think that said a lot to me about the caliber of people that I was working with, and really made me excited to continue with a group of people that were kind of looking out for each other and just were looking out for the best interest of everyone, not just their own individual output. Yeah, really cool.
Not always the case, but really great.
No, yes, yeah, for sure.
A question from Amy. Your process is inspiring because it can be hard to take time to find unique inspiration. There go my dogs. And you did that in the sprint. I love the kinetic systems and colors. I assume there was a motion designer on the team, but I would love to know how the collaboration happens.
Yes, so we have a few motion designers on our team. That's the other thing that's really beautiful about the team at Emotive is that everyone is sort of multidisciplinary. So even though ultimately we're all working on brand identities, people come from all different types of backgrounds, whether it's illustration or motion graphics or UI and UX. So whatever skills you have, you can bring to the table. And I think that, if you see potential to bring motion to someone else's project, that's a possibility that can happen, and that people take on. And so, we have some really incredible motion designers I'm excited to learn from, because that's something that I actually don't know a whole lot about myself. But yeah, that to bring all those sort of different skill sets together just allows you to do so much more with the project, because you're not just relying on one skill set.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Azi. This is an incredible presentation. And Sandra and Ron, amazing. Keep up the good work. I think we're all thirsty for show and tell, and hopefully we'll be able to get together in person soon. Alex?
Great. Yeah. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining today. This wraps everything up. Now that things are returning back to normal, our next event actually on the calendar is on June 13th, and we'll be in person outdoors at Golden Gate Park. It'll be a bike ride open to everyone. So look for that information in your email inbox soon. And also, if you're interested in getting more involved with the club event planning and volunteering and hosting more show and tells and events, or know anyone who would like to share their work, please reach out to Stefania and Amy, myself, or even Tway for ways how. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you all again, and hope everyone enjoys their evening.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.
See y'all.
Bye, Sandy.